Hello again, everybody. This is Dave from Box News and Exclusive Collectibles, back for another box break. Today we're going to be opening one box of 1991 Pacific football cards. This is Brett Favre's rookie year, but there's a lot of great players to be had, so we're going to open these up, see what they look like, and see what we get. So hope you enjoy. All right. As you can see, these are very soft foil packs, and the cards are very glossy. However, these were mass produced to all get out, but you can still find some great players out of here. All right, from our first pack, we've got Kevin Mack, Andre Ware, Sean Jones, Dean Biasucci, Hartley Dykes, Morton Anderson, Tim McDonald, Chris Hinton, Shane Conlon, Rondell Davis, Lawyer Tillum, Jerry Ball, Chris Dishman, and Dwayne Bickett out of this one. Next up, out of these nice soft packs, we of course want to see as many Favres as we can get, but if we can get some Reggie Whites or other great players, that'd be great too. Derek Thomas, Howie Long, Brian Sokia, Willie Anderson, Henry Thomas, Phil Simms, Torrey Epps, Leon Seals, Donnell Wolford, Reggie Langhorne, Rodney Peete, John Grimsley, and Chip Banks. I think someone's hiding behind him. Glossy cards always tend to stick together. Chip Banks and Chris Singleton out of that one. Next up, we've got Harold Green, Bill Bates, Melvin Bratton, Leroy Butler, Barry Word, Willie Galt, Reggie Roby, Jackie Slater, Steve Jordan, John Elliott, Anthony Munoz, Hall of Famer, Mike Saxon, Alfonso Carricker, and Mark Lee out of this one. Next up, we've got Rich Camarillo, Chris Miller, Leonard Smith, Trace Armstrong, Clay Matthews, Leroy Irvin, William Fuller, Bill Brooks, Ed Reynolds, Ricky Jackson, Tim Rosenbach, Bill Fallick, Vernon Thurman Thomas, that's a good one, and Mark Carrier out of that pack. Next up, we have Keith Sims, Buford McGee, Gary Reasons, Herschel Walker, Boomer Esiason, Danny Noonan, Tyrone Braxton, Mark Murphy, John Alt, Ray Schroeder, Jay Schroeder rather, Mark Duper, Irv Pankey, Mike Merriweather, and Jeff Hostetler out of this pack. Next up, we've got John Elway, great card, Johnny Holland, Neil Smith, Scott Davis, John Offerdale, Tom Newberry, Carl Lee, Lawrence Taylor, another Hall of Famer, Jim Breach, Jay Novacek, Carl Meckenberg, Tim Harris, Dave Zott, and we've got Mervyn Hernandez. Alright, moving along. Now these packs were, or these boxes and sets were really mass produced back in the 90s. Aaron Wallace, Jarvis Williams, Kevin Green, Joy Browner, Carl Banks, Sean Collins, Ray Bentley, Richard Dent, Mike Oliphant, Barry Sanders, another great card, Lorenzo White, Jeff Herrod, John Stevens, and finally out of this one, Dalton Hilliard. Alright, try to make this one a little quicker as the packs cooperate. We've got Michael Irvin, Stephen Atwater, Sterling Sharp, Albert Lewis, Greg Townsend, Sammy Smith, Cleveland Gary, Gary Zimmerman, Bart Oates, Eric Thomas, Jim Jeffcoat, Bobby Humphrey, Tony Mandarick, and Bill Maas. Out of that one, next up, Craig Hayward, Ken Harvey, Andre Bruce, Scott Norwood, Peter Willis, Mike Pagel, Mel Gray, Haywood Jeffries, Keith Taylor, Johnny Rembert, Sam Mills, Freddie Nunn, Jesse Tuggle, and finally out of this one, Frank Reich. Moving along. We've got Dennis Smith, Sean Patterson, Darron Cherry, Max Montoya, J.B. Brown, Jim Everett, Chris Dolman, Brian Williams, Icky Woods, Kelvin Martin, Shannon Sharp, Jeff Curry, Steve DeBerg, and Marcus Allen, another Hall of Famer. Out of this one, next up, 14 card Pacific packs. We've got Tom Newberry, Carl Lee, another Lawrence Taylor card, Jim Breach, Jay Novacek, Carl Meckenberg, Tim Harris, Dave Zott, Mervyn Fernandez, Jeff Cross, Robert Delpino, Chris Carter, Rodney Hampton, and finally out of this one we've got Mitchell Price, Next up, we've got Mark Zubik, Mark Ingram, James Francis, Alexander Wright, Alton Montgomery, Robert Brown, Kevin Ross, Steve Winswicki, Richmond Webb, Frank Stams, Scott Studwell, Dave Maggette, David Fulcher, and finally out of this one, Daniel Stubbs. And moving along, we've got George Jameson, Dean Steichenhauer, Ron Stark, Ronnie Lippett, Ruben Mays, Anthony Bell, Scott Case, Steve Tasker, Brad Muster, Mike Johnson, William White, Johnny Meads, Jack Trudeau, and finally Maurice Hurst out of it. Trying to click away. We've got Robert Brown, Kevin Ross, Steve Wisniewski, Richmond Webb, Frank Stams, Scott Studwell, Dave Maggette, David Fulcher, Daniel Stubbs. Seeing a lot of the same players over. Hey, we got another John Elway. Johnny Holland, Neil Smith, Scott Davis, and John Offerdale. Moving along. Alright, about to open our next one. Still haven't seen a Brett Favre. Eric Dorsey, Jeff Criswell, Eric Motor, Todd Light, Todd Marinovich, Dave Waymer, Steve Christie, Mike Tice, Kenny Walker, with Mark Duzbabek, Mark Ingram, James Francis, Alexander Wright, and finally out of this one we've got Alton Montgomery. Alright, we've got Mike Gann, Will Wolford, Sean Gale, Leroy Horde, Eddie Murray, Warren Moon, great card, Pat Tomberlin, Fred Marion, another Hall of Famer, Bobby Hebert, Anthony Thompson, Richard Bryan, Don Beebe, Kevin Butler, and John Talley out of this one. Alright, moving to our next one. Bruce Hill, Rufus Porter, Alvin Walton, Sean Landetta, Al Noga, Troy Benson, Anthony Toney, Eric Turner, Gil Bird, Keith Cash, Vinny Testaverde, Andy Heck, Todd Bowles, and Wade Wilson out of this one. All right. We've got Al Harris, Dwayne Woodruff, John Freese, Mike Sherrod, Mark Robinson, Eugene Robinson, Stan Humphries, Kirk Loudermilk, Matt Baer, Johnny Hector, Mike Quick, Terry Long, Courtney Hall, and finally Joe Montana. Good card to get. Next up, we've got John Williams, Ernest Biner, Randall McDaniel, Pepper Johnson, Darian Connor, Daryl Talley, Cap Bazzo, Louis Cristobal, Michael Cofer, Alan Pinkett, John Hand, Brent Williams, Brett Perryman, and Ron Wolfley. Out of that one, next up we've got Keith Willis, Billy Ray Smith, Kevin Fagan, Randy Grimes, Terry Wooden, Gary Clark, Anthony Carter, Eric Howard, Randall Cunningham, Bobby Brister, Nate Lewis, Bubba Paris, and Kevin Murphy. Out of this one, trying to move quickly. We've got about roughly a dozen packs. I think this box was one pack shy, so I think we had a total of 35. And we've got Raina Thompson, Mark Boyer, Clyde Simmons, Delton Hall, Arthur Cox, Pierce Holt, Willie Drury, Brian Blades, Charles Mann, Keith Millard, Maurice Carthon, Kyle Clifton, and finally out of this one, Seth Joyner. All right. All right, we've got Keith Cash, Vinny Testaverde, Andy Heck, Todd Bowles, Eric Dorsey, Wade Wilson, Jeff Criswell, Eric Moten, Todd Light, Todd Marinovich, Dave Wayner, Steve Christie, Mike Tice, and finally out of this one we've got Kenny Walker. Next up, we've got Johnny Hector, Mike Quick, Terry Long, Courtney Hall, another Jolton Joe Montana, Bruce Hill, Rufus Porter, Alvin Walton, Al Moga, Sean Wendetta, Troy Benson, Anthony Toney, Eric Turner, and Gil Bird. Alright, we got Joe Nash, Jeff Bostic, Hassan Jones, Leonard Marshall, Mike Haught, Al Harris, Dwayne Woodruff, John Freeze, Mike Sherrard, Mark Robinson, Eugene Robinson, Stan Humphries, Kirk Loudermilk, and Matt Baer. Alright, we've got Broderick Thomas, Norm Johnson, Daryl Green, Rich Gannon, Jeff Legman, Fred Barnett, Mike Mularkey, Anthony Miller, Dennis Brown, Harry Hamilton, Jacob Green, Art Monk, along with Ray Berry out of this one. Next up, we got The Fridge, William Perry, Brian Wagner, Marcus Spindler, Paul Gruber, Robert Blackman, Daryl Grant, Burt Grossman, Tim Worley, Dennis Beard, Bobby Wilson, Merrill Hodge, nice guy, Leo Goes, Guy McIntyre, and Eugene Marv out of this one. Next up, we've got Andre Reed, not a bad card. Neil Anderson, Eric Metcalf, Womas Brown, Bubba McDowell, Stacy Simmons, Tom Hodson, Eric Martin, Louis Sharp, Pat Leahy, Reggie White, first one we've seen of him, and Louis Lips, along with Gary Plummer, and finally Bill Romanowski. Alright, we're about 8 packs left out of this box. We've got Greg McMurtry, Pat Swilling, Vay Sakema, Andre Rison, Bruce Smith, Jim Covert, Mike Babb, Chris Spelma, Ray Childress, Mike Pryor, Vince Brown, Gene Atkins, Roy Green, and finally Neon Deion Sanders. Final countdown here. We got Brad Baxter, Keith Jackson, Tony Casillas, James Lofton, Jay Hilgenberg, Russell Maryland, Robert Clark, Keith McCants, Tom Kane, Ricky Sanders, Greg Lloyd, Billy Joe Tolliver, Mike Rozier, and Mike Dumas. We've got Jeff Campbell, Winston Moss, Chris Warren, Wilbur Marshall, Jerome Brown, Rob Moore, Houston Hoover, Mark Kelso, Jim Harbaugh, Frank Minifield, Dan Owens, Chris Chandler, Dave Creed, Joe Jacoby, and we're on our final 5, it looks like. Alright, we've got Ricky Prohl, Kevin Haverdink, Jim Sweeney, Wes Hopkins, Rod Woodson, Ronnie Harmon, Dexter Carter, Ed King, Jesse Hester, Irving Fryer, Wanzel Hill, and finally out of this one, Cedric Mack, and we've got Stanford Jennings, and Jack Del Rio hanging around in the back. Alright, final packs. Got 4 left. We've got Charles Haley, Drew Hill, Jeff George, Marv Cook, Ronaldo Turnbull, Dan McGuire, James Hasty, Andre Waters, Carnell Lake, Jared Bunch, Steve Young, that's a good one, Lamar Lathan, Pat Beach, and Andre Tippett. Alright, final 3. Got Dave Cadigan, Calvin Williams, Brian Hinkle, Broderick Thompson, Michael Carter, Bruce Matthews, Clarence Verdian, Sammy Martin, Wayne Martin, Lionel Young, Tony Stargell, Byron Evans, David Little, and Martin Bayless. And our fight. And Stacey Danley, Garen Verris, Dexter Manley, John Forcade, Al Toon, Ben Smith, Gary Anderson, Wesley O'Neill, Tom Rathman, Mike Muncher, Albert Bentley, Mike Kroll, Vincent Buck, Garth Jacks, and then alright, Mike Singletary, David Grayson, Benny Blades, Ernest Givens, Eugene Daniels, Bruce Armstrong, Vaughn Johnson, Ernie Jones, Ken O'Brien, Eric Allen, Thomas Everett, Marion Butts, John Taylor, and finally we've got Curtis Duncan. Since we didn't have 36 packs, we're going to add one more non-foil Pacific pack just to make it an even 36. This one's pretty much a wax pack, And we're going to add this in to our break here. And we've got Ricky Nattiel, Michael Maddox, Dan Salamanua, Steve Smith, Pete Stoyanovich, Pete Hallahan, Warren Williams, Lee Williams, Tim McGee, Isaac Holt, Vance Johnson, Perry Kemp, Kevin Porter, and finally Don Mosbar. So there you have it, 1991 Pacific Football box. There's a lot of great cards that we get, but there's a lot of cards we didn't get. We didn't get a single Brett Favre. We didn't get a single Dan Marino. So there's good cards out there. Even though this is a low value set, there's definitely great cards to be found. So if you decide to pick one up, make sure you get a few of them, because it's hard pulls for some of the cards. So hope you enjoy. Click like and subscribe, and we'll bring you more videos. Thanks for watching. Thanks for watching our video. If you have any questions, feel free to comment below. Click the subscribe button for more videos. Listen and download us on SoundCloud. Visit our site at blocksnews.net and exclusivecollectibles.com for articles, news, collectibles, and help with your website, marketing, and SEO needs. Email us to learn more.